Welcome to this explainer. You know, when you picture becoming a pilot, your mind immediately goes straight up to the sky, right? You imagine breaking through the clouds, trimming the aircraft for cruise, and just soaking in that incredible, boundless freedom. But, well, here is the surprising reality that pretty much every single student pilot quickly discovers. Flying might be the dream, but the tarmac, that's where the real traffic jams, the confusing instructions, and the most immediate hazards actually happen. Before you can ever hope to conquer the sky, you absolutely have to survive the ground. But think about it for a second. How exactly do you drive a vehicle that was fundamentally built to leave the ground? I want you to imagine steering this massive, powerful machine while having to actively break almost all the intuitive rules you've learned from driving a car. You don't use a steering wheel, the wind is constantly trying to flip you over, and the intersections you have to navigate, yeah, they don't have stoplights. So today, we are going to build your pilot's ground toolkit and completely master ground movement procedures. All right, let's dive into our roadmap for mastering the tarmac. We're breaking this down into 5 distinct skills today. First, planning your taxi path. Second, radio calls and clearances. Third, steering and speed control. Fourth, beating the wind. And finally, ground right of way. Okay, Section 1, planning your taxi path. This phase is all about the mental preparation that is absolutely 100% required before your plane's wheels ever move an inch. Just look at the stark contrast between airports. You've got a place like San Diego in California, which is wonderfully simple. Literally just one single runway and a straightforward taxiway. The best path is super obvious. But then compare that to Las Vegas's McCarran International. It's an absolute maze of parallel runways, intersecting taxiways, with all these different letter designations, holding pads, and zipper-style vehicle lanes. This instantly shows you exactly why mapping a path is so critical. You cannot just start rolling and figure it out as you go at a complex airfield. So here are the literal step-by-step actions you need to take to build your situational awareness before moving. First off, listen to the ATIS. That's the Automatic Terminal Information Service. This tells you the active runways, obstructions, and any unserviceable areas. Next, check the wind direction indicator. Combine these 2 pieces of info to determine your active runway. Then, physically study your airport chart so you know the absolute shortest, safest route to the takeoff holding point. And hey, if you are ever confused at a big airport, don't let pride get in the way. Just key up the mic and request a progressive taxi. Ground control will literally give you step-by-step turn directions to get exactly where you need to go. Moving right along to Section 2, radio calls and clearances. This is where we lock down the official permission we need to enter these highly controlled movement areas. Now, before you move a muscle at a towered airport, you need clearance. And your radio call needs to be crisp. It has to contain very specific information. It sounds a little something like this. Hagerstown Ground Control, Beechcraft 3874 Alpha at City Ramp, ready to taxi, departing VFR northwestbound. Do you notice the structure there? You state exactly who you're calling, your full call sign, your precise location on the airfield, your request to taxi, and your planned operation and direction. You have to state your intentions clearly, and always read back any instructions that tell you to hold short of a runway. But what happens if your radio suddenly goes kaput while you're out on the taxiway? Well, you need a backup visual communication plan. The control tower will actually use a light gun to signal you, and you must know what these colors mean instantly. A steady red light, that means stop immediately. Flashing red means taxi clear of the active runway. Flashing green means you're cleared to continue taxiing, usually just heading back to the ramp to get that radio fixed. Steady green means cleared for takeoff. Flashing white tells you to return to your starting point, and alternating red and green, that means exercise extreme caution. You really need to memorize these. They are your absolute lifeline when the radio goes quiet. All right, Section 3, steering and speed control. As we get into how to actually move the aircraft, remember the golden rule for safe ground speed. Maintain a fast walking pace. Any faster than that, and you're seriously risking a loss of control. Let's look at how we physically drive this thing. If you've never flown before, your very first instinct is going to be to grab the control column, the yoke, and turn it just like a car's steering wheel. I promise you, literally nothing will happen. Aircraft direction on the ground is controlled entirely by your feet. Now, many planes have nose-wheel steering that's directly connected to the rudder pedals, but others, like the Cirrus or a lot of light sport aircraft, have what's called a castering nose wheel. It essentially just spins freely, kind of like the wobbly wheel on a shopping cart. For those planes, you use differential braking. By applying brake pressure only to the right wheel, for instance, the plane just pivots and turns to the right. And the specific foot mechanics required here are super important. It's a completely different muscle memory than driving your car. The brake cylinders are situated right on top of each rudder pedal. So normally, you taxi with your heels firmly glued to the floor and just the balls of your feet on the bottom part of the rudder pedals to steer. This naturally prevents you from accidentally hitting the brakes. When you actually do need to brake, you slide your feet up and use the ball of each foot to press the top of the pedals. Those are your toe brakes.
Let's see how this all builds into the exact sequence for safely moving off the ramp. Step 1. With your path clear, apply just enough engine power to overcome the plane's inertia and get it rolling. Step 2. The absolute second you are moving, pull that throttle back to idle. Step 3. Gently test your brakes right away to ensure they actually work. If the pedals feel mushy or soft, stop immediately. Step 4. Once the brakes check out, reapply just enough power to maintain that fast walking pace we talked about. And the absolute biggest takeaway here, never, ever use engine power against your brakes. If you want to slow down, close the throttle first. Dragging your brakes while applying power just wastes a ton of energy, overheats the brake pads, and means they might completely fail when you actually need them.
Next up, Section 4, beating the wind. Remember, your aircraft is highly aerodynamic. Even just sitting on the ground, a strong wind will constantly try to lift your wings or weather vane your tail right into the breeze. You have to actively fight it using your flight controls. Consider this your ultimate cheat sheet for wind mitigation. It breaks down exactly how you should hold the yoke based on the wind's direction. If the wind is coming from the front hemisphere, so a headwind, you hold the control column neutral or pull it slightly back. This raises the elevator and keeps the tail pinned down, taking the load right off the nose wheel. But if the wind is blowing from behind you, a tailwind, you must push the control column forward. This moves the elevator down, preventing that tailwind from catching the underside of the horizontal stabilizer and literally lifting the back of your plane right off the ground. Finally, we hit Section 5, ground right-of-way. Now we tackle the climax of ground control, navigating the chaotic intersections of the tarmac. You're going to be sharing this space with other planes, fuel trucks, tugs, you name it. Avoiding metal-on-metal contact requires strict, unwavering adherence to right-of-way rules.
When you look at top-down paths for planes, the conflict resolution is actually pretty clear. When two aircraft are taxiing and approaching head-on, both pilots are required to turn to the right to avoid each other. And when two aircraft are on converging paths at an intersection, the aircraft that has the other on its right side must give way. It's honestly a lot like yielding to the right at a four-way stop in a car. You either orbit or you pass well behind them.
Let's clearly establish the absolute pecking order of the tarmac so you, as a student pilot, always know exactly who must give way. The ultimate priority, that goes to landing aircraft, followed very closely by aircraft taking off. I mean, they are moving fast and have extremely limited maneuverability, so stay out of their way. Next down on the hierarchy are vehicles towing an aircraft. Finally, an aircraft that is being overtaken by a faster one from behind has the right of way. The overtaking plane must keep well clear. And remember, regardless of whatever ATC clearance you get, it is ultimately your duty as the pilot in command to do everything humanly possible to avoid a collision. The most crucial, golden, completely life-saving rule of ground movement is this. If in any doubt, stop. I want to slow the pacing completely down right now to really hammer this principle home. If you don't know where you are, if you aren't sure who has the right of way, or if you feel rushed or confused by ATC instructions, just stop the airplane. Wait, assess the situation, and call for clarification. A brief moment of embarrassment on the radio is infinitely better than causing a runway incursion. All of these structured tools we've discussed today, mapping your path, making crisp radio calls, steering with your feet, managing the wind, and yielding right of way, they all combine to form the foundation of something we call good airmanship. Airmanship on the ground simply means knowing exactly where you are going before you ever release that parking brake and maintaining a constant, vigilant lookout from the very moment that propeller starts spinning. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Will you master the ground before you conquer the sky? The safest, most exhilarating flights don't actually begin at rotation. They begin the moment you expertly navigate the tarmac. Review these procedures, visualize your footwork, and get eager to get behind that yoke and those pedals. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.